like half.
In the next room or the Vibrator play. Act 1. First scene. Mrs. Givings turns on her electric lamp. She shows it to her baby.
Look, baby, it's light. No candle, no rusty tool to snuff it out, but light, pure light, straight from man's imagination into our living room. On, off, on, off.
She turns it off and on. Dr. Givings enters the living room. He walks through the space toward the operating theater without saying hello to his wife. She watches him after he exits.
Hello?
Dr. Givings re-enters the living room from the operating theater.
Sorry. Hello, darling.
He exits again to his office. In the operating theater, Annie changes the sheets on the examining table.
Hello. We'll find a nice nurse for you, won't we? A nice wet nurse with lots of healthy milk. Your father put in an advertisement in the paper and we'll get lots of replies today. My milk is not filling you up, is it? Are you less fat today, darling? Are your cheeks less fat?
She is in near tears. She recovers.
I'll find you a nurse who hasn't a child of her own. Not that I hope to find a nurse with a dead baby, for that is tragic. Nothing is more tragic. Oh, it hurts me to think it. You and your pram not moving. But I suppose if I am to find a childless nurse with milk to spare, her baby must be dead. And recently dead. Oh dear, I do not like to think of that.
Dr. Givings enters again.
I have a new patient who might ring the doorbell any second. She arrives. Would you please let Annie enter the door?
The doorbell rings.
Her nerves are terribly raw, and it might throw off the entire clinical balance for her to meet you and the baby.
The doorbell rings.
Please hide.
Shouting
Please
at
hide.
his right.
Annie!
Mrs. Givings hides behind a piano. Dr. Givings runs out with the pram. Annie answers the door.
Hello. You must be Mr. and Mrs. Daldry. Please come in.
Mr. and Mrs. Daldry enter. Mrs. Daldry is fragile and ethereal. Her face is covered by a veil attached to a hat. She leans heavily into her husband's arm.
This way, let me show you to the operating theater.
Miss Daldry startles.
Well, let's just call it the next room for now, shall we? Don't be nervous, Mrs. Daldry. Shall I put your hat here?
Mrs. Daldry shakes her head. Mr. Daldry.
I'm sorry. I have to find somebody else do that line.
She's very
the
sensitive
script
to light. She's very sensitive to light, says Mr. Daldry.
Of course. Right this way.
Dr. Givings enters from the living room and overhears his last remark. Annie turns off the electric lamp. She leads them to the office.
So nice to meet you, Mrs. Daldry. Mr. Daldry, shall I take your coat?
Mrs. Daldry shakes her head. She's very sensitive to cold.
I
Okay.
see. Well, have a seat. Sensitive to light, sensitive to cold.
Oh, is there a baby here? I didn't know there was a new baby. How wonderful for you.
Yes. Could you shut the door, please, Annie?
She does so. Then Annie sits invisibly in the corner, listening to the conversation. Dr. Givings sits and takes out his notepad, writing down notes. Mrs. Givings, meanwhile, in the next room, has heard the baby cry. She sneaks out and exits to the nursery.
What other symptoms is your wife suffering from?
I find her weeping at odd moments during the day, muttering about green curtains or some such nonsense.
Is it nonsense, Mrs. Daldry?
I suppose it is. The green curtains just give me a terrible headache. The color, the old ghosts in the dark.
Mr. Daldry gives Dr. Givings a pointed look.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more about the curtains, would you?
The house where I grew up, my mother would wash the curtains every week. She beat them with a stick, and there were no ghosts in them. There was a beautiful gray arbor, and the curtains were clean. You could see right through the gray You could almost watch them growing. They got so plump in the autumn. Well, my mother would make loads of jam. My mother was not a nervous or excitable woman. It was jam. It was laughing. Not long walks out of the doors. We haven't a grape arbor here. I am full of digressions these days, Dr. Givings. But the point is, I haven't the strength to wash the curtains every week and beat. Sorry, I have to flip the page. The ghosts out of them. You think I'm talking like a madwoman, but if you could see that the curtains, you would see that I really am very logical. They're horrible.
Mr. Daldry raises his eyebrows at Dr. Givings.
And you have tried the usual remedies, rest and relaxation.
I do nothing
Yes.
but rest. Nothing but rest.
When I met Mrs. Daldry, she was 17. She was an extraordinary creature. She played the piano. We ate grape jam in the arbor, and there I told her I wanted to take care of her and protect her forever, didn't I?
Yes.
Now I am afraid there is very little sympathy between us.
I'm breaking his heart. He likes me to be a certain way. Perhaps if I could play the piano again, but fingers, they just won't work.
No, her fingers do not work in the living room or in any other room, if you take my meaning, Dr. Givings.
Mr. Daldry, please do not embarrass me with such vulgarities. I am shocked and disgusted, and I will leave the room now.
She leaves the room. She stands in the living room, flustered. She sees the electrical lamp and turns it on and off.
Mr. Daldry, your wife is suffering from hysteria. It is a very clear case. I recommend therapeutic electrical massage weekly, possibly daily, we shall see, a session. We need to relieve the pressure of her nerves. You will soon have your blooming wife back. She will regain her color. Light and cold will no longer have the same effect on her. You will soon be eating grape jam and wondering how it is that Mrs. Daldry looks so much like a 17-year-old.
Thank you, Dr. Givings. You have no idea what a source of anguish my wife's illness has been to me, and to her, of course.
Of course. I will have her back for you in an hour's time.
Thank you, Doctor.
Meanwhile, Mrs. Givings has re-entered the living room with the baby.
This lamp is extraordinary. It hurts my eyes to watch it go on and off, but I enjoy it. It's kind of religious ecstasy to feel half blind, don't you think?
Yes, isn't it? I was not supposed to meet you, but I'm glad I have. I hope you find my husband to be a comfort. I know that I do.
May I hold your baby?
Yes, of course. I would ask you to...
I would ask you to leave Mrs. Daldry here. I would ask you to leave Mrs. Daldry here while you take a walk around the grounds. Perhaps it's better if you don't disturb her now, Mr. Daldry.
Of course. Whatever you think is best, Doctor.
What is the baby's name?
Letitia. Lottie for short. 3 syllables seemed like too many for a baby.
Lottie.
During the proceeding, Dr. Givings shakes Mr. Daldry's hand. Mr. Daldry puts his hat on. Mr. Daldry gives a brief quizzical glance to the vibrator and exits.
The doctor is ready for you now.
No. Must I go back in there? I would much rather hold the baby.
Mr. Daldry enters the living room.
Be a good girl.
Mrs.
Be a
Daldry
good
hands the
girl.
baby back to Mrs. Givings.
She's just beautiful.
Isn't she? Too skinny, though.
Mrs. Daldry hesitates, looking at the baby.
The doctor is waiting, Sabrina.
Or so I've been told. If you'll excuse me, it's time for her nap.
Mrs. Givings exits to the nursery. Annie leads Mrs. Daldry into the operating theater. Mr. Daldry surveys the living room and prepares to walk the grounds. In the operating theater,
Now then, Mrs. Daldry, I would ask you to remove your clothing, but you may keep your underthings on. Please remove your corsets, if you would. Annie will place a sheet over your lower regions. We will respect your modesty in every particular.
Mrs. Daldry nods.
I shall give you privacy.
He turns his back on them, a gentleman, as Mrs. Daldry undresses with Annie's help. Mrs. Givings has re-entered the living room without the baby. She sees Mrs. Daldry.
Hello again.
Hello. They are trying to get rid of me. I am supposed to walk about the grounds.
But is it not raining, Mr.
Daldry. Oh, I don't know.
Your name?
No. If it's raining.
Then you will have to gamble on whether or not to take an umbrella.
Indeed.
Meanwhile, in the operating theater, Mrs. Daldry disrobes with Annie's help. It takes a while to disrobe as she wears a variety of layers. In the living room, Mr. Daldry and Mrs. Givings.
There are three kinds of people: those who use umbrellas when it is not raining, those who do not use umbrellas even when it is raining, and those who use umbrellas only and precisely when it rains. Which kind are you, Mr. Daldry?
I use an umbrella while it is raining.
That's too bad. I find people who do not use umbrellas while it is raining horribly romantic. Strolling, no, striding through the rain with wet hair, looking at a drop of water on a branch.
My wife is one of those.
Oh yes, I could see that.
It's damned annoying. I always worry she'll catch cold.
But horribly romantic. My husband opens his umbrella at the merest hint of rain, and even if it does not rain, he will leave it open, stubborn as an ox, and keep walking. My husband is a scientist.
And what sort of person are you, Mrs. Givings?
Why, I don't know. My husband has always held the umbrella. Isn't that funny? I don't know at all what kind of person I am.
In the other room, Mrs. Daldry's clothes are now off to her underclothes. Annie drapes a sheet over her.
I'll show you the grounds, and we can use this very large umbrella, and perhaps I will hold it, and we will see what kind of person I am. I only... let's see what kind of person I am. I only hope you do not get wet.
It sounds like a madcap adventure.
Mrs. Givings and Mr. Daldry exit. In the operating theater.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, Dr. Givings. Yes, Dr.
Are
Givings.
you woman now? Audrey, we're going to introduce in you what's called a paroxysm. The congestion in your womb is causing your hysterical symptoms, and if we can release some of that congestion and invite the juices downward, your health will be restored. Thanks to the dawn of electricity. Yes, thank you, Mr. Edison. I always tip my hat to Mr. Edison, a great American. I have a new instrument which I will use. It used to be
Oh dear.
Hello. Lost. There we go. Sorry. Thanks to the daughter. Yes, it used to. It would take me or do say paroxysm in our patients, and it demanded quite a lot of skill and patience. It was much like a child's game, trying to pat the head and rub the stomach at the same time. But thanks to this new electrical instrument, we shall be done in a matter of minutes.
I'm afraid that I don't.
3 minutes, sometimes 5 at the outer limits. Are you ready, Mrs. Daldry?
She nods. He takes out a huge vibrator. He plugs it in. He turns it on.
I'm frightened.
Doctor.
Don't be frightened.
There's no danger of being electrocuted?
Don't be frightened.
There's no danger of being electrocuted?
Not at all.
He puts his arm under the sheet and holds the vibrator to her private parts.
I will tell you an amusing story. Dr. Benjamin Franklin once decided. I will tell you an amusing story. Dr. Benjamin Franklin once decided to electrocute a bird for his turkey dinner on Christmas Eve. But by mistake, he held onto the chain, completing the circuit, and couldn't let go. He described violently convulsing until he was able, by sheer force of will, to let go of the chain. He was perfectly fine. Do you feel calmer?
No.
This will just take a matter of minutes.
Mrs. Daldry moans quietly.
It's all right, Mrs. Daldry. That's just fine.
Mrs. Daldry moans quietly.
Annie will hold your hand.
Annie holds her hand.
Oh, God in his heaven!
She has a quiet paroxysm. Now remember that these are the days before digital pornography. There is no cliche of how women are supposed to orgasm, no idea in their heads of how they are supposed to sound when they climax. Mrs. Daldry's first orgasms could be very quiet, organic, awkward, or primal, or very clinical, or embarrassingly natural. But whatever it is, it should not be a cliche, a camp version of how we expect all women to sound when they orgasm. It's simply clear that she has some kind of release.
That was very good, Mrs. Daldry. Is not this new instrument wonderful? Thank goodness for Benjamin Franklin and his electric key. Did you know they electrocuted an elephant in Coney Island last week? Marvelous. Annie will help you get dressed, and you may meet Mr. Daldry on the grounds.
All right. And perhaps, may I hold your baby again before I leave?
I did not realize you had met the baby. I hope that was not distracting in the middle of our session.
No, I liked holding her. We've not been able to.
Oh, there.
I have children. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Oh, dear Mrs. Daldry, take heart. You see, Annie, it is the pent-up emotion inside the womb that causes her hysterical symptoms. You can see it quite clearly. I will administer another round of therapy to the patient. Lie back down, Mrs. Daldry.
He plugs the vibrator in again.
No, please, no, don't touch me there again. It's painful. No, please, no.
He places the vibrator on her private parts.
Oh.
What are you feeling, Mrs. Daldry?
Well, my feet, they're very hot. It's like dancing on coals and down there. Cold and hot to the touch. Oh, my heart is racing.
She has a quiet paroxysm.
Oh.
That's all right, Mrs. Daldry. There. You must lie there and stay quiet for a while. I am going to wash my hands.
He moves to the wash basin. She sits up.
Can you please pass me my hat?
Of course. You don't need to be ashamed. This instrument has quite the same effect on all our patients. Sometimes they laugh and weep all at the same time. They often call for God.
Mrs. Daldry stands wearing her hat with her sheet wrapped around her. Her sheet falls off as she puts her hat on. She is left only wearing her bloomers and her veil.
Oh, dear.
It is quite all right, Mrs. Daldry.
Annie puts the sheet back on her.
I'm suddenly very drowsy.
Yes, most of our patients become drowsy after the treatment.
May I lie down again?
Please do.
You're a midwife,
Yes.
and you assist Dr. Gibbings with births and all manner of things.
Yes.
How did you come to be a midwife?
Well, I was 33 and unmarried and hadn't had the patience for teaching young children.
You've assisted women in their confinements,
Yes.
so you have seen every form of torture.
I have seen women in a great deal of pain, yes.
Hold my hand and I will fall asleep.
Of course.
Annie holds Mrs. Doldry's hand and strokes her hair. Mrs. Doldry falls asleep. Throughout the next bit, she drowses, then wakes, and gets dressed with the help of Annie. In the other room, Mr. Doldry and Mrs. Givings return from their walk on the grounds. They are laughing and drenched. Mrs. Givings shakes out her umbrella.
I must be a very inconsistent person. I like to be wet, and then I like to be dry, and then I like to be wet again.
You're very healthy and robust. I could barely keep up with you.
I love to walk. I never had enough exercise as a child, so now I walk, walk, walk. No one can keep up with me. Not even Dr. Givings. That is how he fell in love with me. He said he was determined to keep up with me. He only saw the back of my head before we married because I was one step ahead. He said he had to marry me to see my face.
Dr. Givings enters.
Didn't you, darling?
What's that?
Have to marry me in order to see my face.
I see you have met my wife.
Uh-oh.
Indeed.
We had a very successful session. You should find Mrs. Doldry much relaxed.
I'm sorry. I lost the place. Excellent. Excellent.
I gave Mr. Doldry a tour of the grounds. We got wet.
I don't want you catching cold. The baby mustn't catch cold at this age.
You know I'm healthy as an ox. If only more of my milk would come in. Oh, you'll excuse me, Mr. Doldry, that is not polite to mention in mixed company.
Are you advertising for a nurse?
Indeed, we are.
Our housekeeper recently lost her baby, and I believe she still has plentiful milk. Perhaps she could help, though we don't want to lose her services. She is very upstanding and all the rest of it. Very hard to find, a gem. Self-educated, you see, with the manners of a lady. I don't know if she'd ever take it into her head to be a wet nurse, you know. You know what they say about wet nurses, 9 part devil, 1 part cow. But that's what you want, isn't it? A nice young woman who never intended to be a wet nurse, but who has milk to spare.
Oh, she sounds perfect. We desperately want someone who's very moral, who's...
My father was a well-known abolitionist, Mr. Doldry.
I believe I've heard of him. William Givings? William Givings?
Yes.
Was that your father's name?
You'd rather have a Negro Protestant than an Irish Catholic, wouldn't you?
Mrs. Givings thinks about that.
Is she married?
Yes.
That's good.
To be sure, you don't want an unmarried woman boarding at your house. Turn the household upside down. The pretty ones, anyway.
He laughs and jostles Dr. Givings. Mrs. Givings stares. Dr. Givings clears his throat.
That is to say, she's married to a fine man with a steady job.
We would be happy to take on your housekeeper, Elizabeth, as a wet nurse, and we can pay handsomely. Not so handsomely that she leaves your service. We really are in dire straits because my wife's milk is not adequate, I'm afraid. Bottle-fed babies don't do well in cholera season. They don't do well at all. It's no time to stand on prejudice, Catherine.
My husband is a very unconventional man, a scientist. I've no idea what the neighbors will say.
Let them observe that your baby is growing nice and fat.
Mrs. Daltrey enters, looking wonderfully well rested.
How well rested you look.
I feel wonderful. Your husband is a good doctor.
Yes, he is.
There are roses in your cheeks.
Is the light bothering you, Mrs. Daldry?
No, I hardly noticed it. I was horrified when the electric lamp was invented. I so prefer candlelight, and I thought from now on people's faces will look like monsters in the evening, even without the help of the candlelight. No flicker, no glow. None of you look like monsters at present. You all look very charming. You are wet, Mr. Daltrey.
It is raining, Mrs. Daldry. Or shall we?
Mrs. Daldry nods.
Might we borrow an umbrella? I did not anticipate rain.
Dr.
Be
Gibbons.
sure. I always keep an extra umbrella in case of emergencies.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbings. I will see you again, I hope.
Tomorrow, I believe, is best. We will need daily sessions.
Excellent. And how much do I owe you, Doctor?
Not to worry, we'll settle up weekly.
Oh, fine. Then we shall see you tomorrow, and we'll bring Elizabeth with us.
Good day.
Good day.
Good day.
Good day.
The door shuts.
I'm nervous about bringing a stranger into the house. Very nervous indeed.
Lottie is losing weight, my dear.
Yes, of course, and it's all my fault.
I'm not assigning blame, my darling.
Whose fault is it then?
No one's. The body is blameless. Milk is without intention.
A good mother has a fat child, and everyone knows it.
Then it will be a relief to find her a good nurse.
Indeed. I cannot wait to meet her.
Cheer up, darling. We are healthy and happy, are we not?
Yes. Yes.
He kisses her on the cheek and exits. Mrs. Gibbings is alone. Second scene. Dr. Gibbings examines Elizabeth in the operating theater.
It is important to examine you to be sure your milk is healthy.
Yes, sir.
I also need to be sure you haven't any venereal disease that could be passed through the milk to the child. If you could just lie back, please.
Sir, I'd rather not.
I'm a man of science, Elizabeth. Believe me, I won't be shocked.
Yes, sir. Sir, you won't touch down there, will you?
Mrs. Gibbings enters the living room.
I'm going to give you a medical exam, that's all.
She lies back. He covers her with a sheet. The doorbell rings. Mrs. Gibbings answers it. Mrs. Daldry appears.
Hello.
Hello.
I was walking the grounds. They're lovely.
Why, you look in the bloom of health.
I played the piano again.
What did you play?
I like to make up songs.
Would you play one for me? Oh, please. Oh, please.
Oh, I'm very shy.
No one is shy around me, Mrs. Daltrey. I have the most wonderful effect upon shy people. They hear me talk and think, oh, why be shy?
I don't feel shy around you, Mrs. Gibbings.
I knew it. You see, I'm terrible at the piano. I just pick at it with one or two fingers. It's hardly used. You must play it. The poor thing is languishing without human touch. It's like a piece of dead wood without being played.
How can I say no?
Mrs. Daldry goes to the piano. She plays a pretty, somber, mysterious little tune. And in the next room...
Thank you, Elizabeth. You are very brave and you are very healthy. You can get...
Dr. Gibbings exits and Elizabeth gets dressed.
Oh, but that's beautiful. A bit sad, isn't it? Do you think we make sad things into songs in order to hold on to the sadness or to banish it? I think it's to banish the sadness. So then, if you write a happy song, is it not sadder than the sad song, because by making it you have banished your own happiness into a song? What do you think?
I don't know.
Does it have words?
No.
Oh, but it must have words. Mrs. Daldry, oh, it must. I will supply the words. Play it again, and I will sing some words with it. How is that?
All right.
Mrs. Daldry plays and Mrs. Givings sings.
Raise the blinds in the morning, and I like to close them at night. Together we sleep near the birdhouse and forget the electrical light.
Dr. Givings re-enters the operating theater and escorts the now dressed Elizabeth into the living room.
That was very nice.
Did you like it? Did it go with your song? Oh, I hope you liked it. I hope the song liked the words, because the words loved the song.
The song like the words.
Dr. Givings enters with Elizabeth.
Mrs. Givings,
Hello, darling.
I have examined Elizabeth, and she is very fit and healthy and will be a wonderful nurse to Letitia.
That's marvelous. I'm so sorry about your own child. Elizabeth, that's dreadful.
Thank you. Thank you.
What was the name of your child, or did she have a name yet? That would be horrible. Oh, I don't know what's worth, frankly, a name or no name yet. Oh, I need to stop talking. When death comes up, I just ramble on, and I'll stop now.
His name was Henry Douglas.
A boy.
Yes.
Have you buried him yet?
He's buried at the churchyard, All Souls. He was baptized before he died, and for that, I'm grateful.
Oh, yes. Baptism, at least, is a comfort. He's in heaven now.
I don't like to talk about Henry Douglas, ma'am.
No, of course you wouldn't. Forgive me.
Elizabeth has 2 other boys. 2 lovely boys, very well behaved.
Oh, what a relief. We hope to have extra children, just in case. That is to say more children. I would so love to have a great big brood all climbing over the furniture. The furniture is so dead. That is to say so lifeless. I mean, so sad without children.
I don't have any children.
Oh, what a pity.
Mrs. Daldry is visibly agitated.
Elizabeth, would you like to meet the baby?
Yes, sir.
Catherine, please bring the baby into Elizabeth. Mrs. Daldry, why don't you come with me?
Yes, Doctor.
Mrs. Givings exits to the nursery. Elizabeth sits nervous. She takes off her hat. Mrs. Daldry and Dr. Givings go to the operating theater.
Did that upset you to talk about children?
A little.
Are you feeling nervous?
My heart is pounding and I feel very weak.
Well, you just lie down. Just lie down and I will administer treatment.
Where's Annie today?
She should be arriving momentarily.
I do not wish to undress in front of you.
Yes, of course. I will make some notes. Call out when you are ready for me.
Dr. Givings sits at his desk. Mrs. Daldry starts to undress. In the living room, Mrs. Givings enters with the baby and gives her to Elizabeth.
Well, here she is.
Would you like me to feed her now, ma'am?
I suppose. She must be hungry.
Elizabeth sits, undoes her shirt, and begins nursing. Elizabeth cries with no sound. Mrs. Givings watches. Mrs. Givings is on the verge of tears. Elizabeth notices.
Perhaps it would be better if I fed her in the nursery.
Yes, I think so.
Excuse me.
Of course. Just through there.
Elizabeth exits to the nursery with the baby. Mrs. Givings puts her head in her hands. Dr. Givings enters the living room.
Excuse me, darling. What is it?
Well, Lottie took to Elizabeth right away. She latched right onto her breast, and it made me feel very strange to see her latched onto another woman's breast. For once, it wasn't the baby who was crying. But I feel very queer. I do.
Now, you have to think of the baby and what's best for the baby. We would starve without milk, so think about that. Be practical.
I don't feel well.
I'm ready, Dr. Givings.
I have to attend to Mrs. Daldry. Why don't you have a nice lie down? Here, I'll shut off the lamp.
He does.
I don't want to lie down. I want to feed my own child.
But you can, love. Your milk isn't adequate. I love you.
He exits. She paces around the living room. She tries to play the song Mrs. Daldry played on the piano. She peeks at the piano with 2 fingers. In the operating theater, Dr. Givings readies the vibrator.
Sorry for the delay.
Not at all.
He turns on the vibrator. It makes a loud sound. Mrs. Givings hears the sound, registers its oddness, and goes on playing the piano.
Fine weather we're having. Chilly, but bright.
Indeed.
There we are.
Dr. Givings puts the vibrator to Mrs. Daldry's private parts.
This will only take about a few minutes, Mrs. Daldry.
Oh?
There. What are you feeling, Mrs. Daldry?
It's not working. Today it's not working.
Dr. Givings adjusts the machine, making it louder.
There?
I don't know.
He repositions the machine under the blanket.
Nothing. I feel nothing.
He turns it up again. The vibrating noise stops altogether, and the lights go out.
Oh, dear.
Did I make it stop?
It's electrical failure.
Mrs. Givings looks up in the dark of the living room. She lights several candles. Annie enters the operating theater.
Well, I'm glad you're here, Annie. We've had a power failure.
My head.
Oh dear. Mrs. Daldry, are you ill?
I have been trying these last 3 minutes. It's never taken longer than 3 minutes with this machine.
Should I try the manual treatment, Dr. Gibbons?
Yes, why don't you? I will go look into this. Good day, Mrs. Daldry. Annie?
What is the manual treatment?
You just lie back.
In the near dark, Annie puts her hand under the sheet and begins to stimulate Mrs. Daldry. We certainly do not see this, as the actress needed stimulated exactly. But under the sheets, Mrs. Daldry has a female ejaculation.
Oh, everything is quite wet. I don't know what's happened. I'm sorry. How embarrassing.
This happens from time to time, Mrs. Daldry. I'll change the sheets. Aristotle talked all about it.
Aristotle?
Yes.
Do you read Greek?
Yes.
My goodness.
I'm just going to wash my hands.
Worse.
Meanwhile, in the other room, Elizabeth enters. The living room is now lit with several candles.
Do you need me for this evening, Mrs. Gibbons?
Perhaps after supper?
All right.
Elizabeth turns to go.
Wait a moment. Elizabeth, when the milk comes in, can you feel any love for the child?
I try not to think about love. I try not to think about Henry Douglas.
Of course. Do you want more children, Elizabeth? That is a tactless question. You don't need to answer. Forgive me. Sometimes I say whatever is in my head. I want more children, and my husband desperately wants more children, but I'm afraid of another birth, aren't you? When I gave birth, I remember so clearly. The moment her head was coming out of my body, I thought, why would any rational creature do this twice, knowing what I know now? And then she came out and clambered right onto my breast and tried to eat me. She was so hungry it terrified me, her hunger. And I thought, is that the first emotion, hunger? And not hunger for food, but wanting to eat other people, specifically one's mother? And then I thought, isn't it strange? Isn't it strange about Jesus? That is to say, about Jesus being a man. For it is women who are eaten, who turn their bodies into food. I gave up my blood. There was so much blood. And I gave up my body, but I couldn't feed her. I could not turn my body into food, and she was so hungry. I suppose that makes me an inferior kind of woman, and very inferior kind of Jesus. Oh dear. They said you were very religious. That must have sounded...
I was very religious.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I thought of Jesus while I was giving birth, like you, but I wasn't thinking about why was he a man. I was thinking, please save me, Jesus, and he did. Now, why he didn't save my Henry, I don't know. So I stopped believing in him.
Oh.
Light comes back on. They are astonished.
Ah, the electricity is back.
Mrs. Daldry enters the living room dressed.
Hello.
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 Refreshed.
Do I?
Oh, yes. Would you play us something on the piano? I'm sure Elizabeth would love to hear you play.
I have to get back to get my boys for supper.
Oh, stay for just one song.
All right.
Mrs. Daldry plays a little tune. It's sad. They all listen to the song. Elizabeth cries, but no one sees her crying. Annie enters. Annie.
Sorry, I've lost my place.
Bottom of 49.
Must go. Thank you, Annie. I must go, and I'm walking in your direction.
Goodbye, then. Everyone gets a good walk except for me. Come again tomorrow, or I will be very dull.
Elizabeth lingers.
What is it, Elizabeth?
Do you want to pay me now or later?
Oh, goodness. I haven't any money. I'll have to ask my husband. Perhaps we can settle up weekly.
That's fine. Goodbye.
They all exit. Mrs. Givings blows the candles out. Dr. Givings enters. Please, the power is back on.
The power is back on. One day, whole cities will be electrified. Mr. Edison is the man to do it.
Don't talk to me about electricity. You know how it bores me. Everyone is gone, and we are alone.
Indeed, we are.
I shall turn this off.
She kisses him.
Shall we go upstairs?
Or stay here?
In the living room.
I suppose it is for living in.
They move to the sofa, awkward. They kiss again with polite desire. The doorbell rings. They look at each other as though to say, don't answer that. The doorbell rings again.
I'll get it.
Dr. Givings turns on the light. Mrs. Givings blinks. Dr. Givings answers the door.
Mrs. Daldry?
Mrs. Daldry?
Oh, I forgot my hat.
Oh, you look flushed. Are you all right?
Perhaps the walk overexcited me. I'm not used to walking that much in just one day. Annie and I were walking rather quickly and discussing, well, he knows Greek. Can you imagine? I feel faint.
Mrs. Daldry half collapses on the arm of a chair. Dr. Givings goes to her.
Oh,
There, Mrs. Daldry. Why don't you come see me in the operating theater? The electricity is back on.
Perhaps I'm intruding on your domestic life.
Oh, not at all.
not at all.
This way, Mrs. Givings. Why don't you go to the nursery?
Yes, dear.
Dr. Givings and Mrs. Daldry go into the operating theater. Mrs. Givings listens at the door.
No need to undress all the way, as you're not feeling well. Just lie down gently. Are you still feeling faint?
A little.
She takes her gloves off.
Are you often subject to faintness?
No more than once a week, I dare say.
I see. We'll set you to rights. No worries. Are you ready?
She nods. He puts the vibrator down her bloomers. Mrs. Givings listens at the door.
Oh, no, no, no.
Mrs. Givings cocks her head.
Tell me what you're feeling.
I don't want a machine.
Any fluid, Mrs. Daldry?
No, nothing.
I will try using a finger as well as the instrument to replicate Annie's experiment. Vulvular massage has been discounted in many circles, but occasionally, with the proper diagnosis and method, it is just the thing.
He puts his hand under the sheets.
Oh, oh.
There, Mrs. Daldry, let it all out.
Oh, Annie.
Excuse me.
Please leave me. I feel much relieved.
I will wash up and let you get sorted. Take your time.
Mrs. Givings knocks at the door to the operating theater.
Excuse me.
He opens the door and finds Mrs. Givings there.
What is it? The baby?
What is that sound? What were you doing?
Electrical therapy, my dear. Very successful session.
I wish to see it.
You would not understand. Leave me my dry, boring science, and I will give you the rest of the world. You said yourself that my electricity bored you.
I insist on seeing your machine. Now.
Are you going to force me to lock my laboratory?
I am your wife.
And happily, you are my blooming young wife without a hint of neurosis and in no need of my inventions or experiments.
Experiment on me.
I can assure you that you would not like it.
Experiment on me.
It would be unseemly for a man of science to do experiments on his wife. I'd lose my credibility. Now, would you have the good grace to be quiet while Mrs. Daldry is in the next room?
Mrs. Daldry enters the living room, looking the very picture of health.
Do not let me forget my hat again.
It is right here.
Thank you, Dr. Givings.
Mrs. Givings hands Mrs. Daldry her hat.
Not at all. Goodbye.
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 Mrs. Daldry exits.
I'm going to the club. Mr. Edison's man is electrocuting dogs this evening. He is out to prove the deadliness of the alternating current over and above direct current. I think it's hogwash. In alternating current, the current flips back and forth, you see how much this bores you.
He locks the door of the operating theater and puts a key in his pocket.
Yes, it is very boring. Goodbye. And don't kiss me goodbye, please.
Very well.
He leaves. She storms. She goes toward the operating theater. She jiggles the door. The living room doorbell rings. She answers the door.
I've forgotten my gloves. I'm so sorry. What must you think of me?
Oh, I'm so happy to see you. My husband has just gone to the club and I am bored out of my mind.
My gloves are in the other room.
It is locked.
Oh. I can come back to my gloves.
No, please stay. I have developed the most insatiable curiosity about my husband's operating theater. Perhaps you can tell me how it works.
No, I don't know how it works.
He plugs it in and he turns it on and then...
Then he applies electrical current to my body to release the magnetic fluid. That is what he said. There's excess fluid in my womb causing my hysterical symptom.
Fluid?
Yes. Really, I must go now.
You sounded like this. Oh, Oh, ah, yeah,
You were listening?
it was loud.
Oh dear! I will leave you now.
Stay. Stay for tea. Where does my husband place the electrical device?
Just here.
And does it give you a pleasurable or painful sensation?
Pleasure and pain all at once. Electrical current runs through my entire body. I see lights. Patterns of light under my eyelids. A kind of white hot hole under my feet. And I shudder violently and as though struck by a terrible lightning. And then a darkness descends and then I want to go to sleep.
I never heard of anything so strange.
Let's talk about other things. They electrocuted an elephant at Coney Island.
Yes, I've heard.
It's getting dark.
I will turn the lamp on.
Please don't.
They sit in the dark.
Can you imagine a time when all will be electric, all will be plugged in? Well, it will not stop at lights, but the way we cook our eggs and the way we get our chickens to lay their eggs too. Mr. Edison invented a recording device which
Like gods.
I'm afraid so.
Have you a hat pin?
Yes.
She hands Mrs. Givings a pin from her hat. Mrs. Givings goes to pick the lock of the operating theater.
I will just retrieve your gloves.
Mrs. Givings enters the operating theater. Mrs. Doldry is on her heels. Mrs. Givings looks around.
Is this it?
Yes.
How extraordinary. It looks like a farming tool. Where do you put it?
Here.
Mrs. Givings puts the vibrator on her private parts over her skirt.
I see. Where's the switch?
I've no idea.
Mrs. Givings finds the switch. The vibrator turns on.
What a sound!
I will hold it in place for you.
She does, over Mrs. Givings' skirt.
Is it heavy?
Tolerably.
Well, I don't see what all the fuss is about.
Sometimes I close my eyes.
Mrs. Givings closes her eyes. Mrs. Doldry gently puts the vibrator under Mrs. Givings' skirt. The buzz of the vibrator for longer than is comfortable.
Oh! Oh!
Mrs. Givings climaxes, and as she does, she weeps.
Well, that was very awful. It was a very dreadful, strange feeling. I see why he's been keeping it from me.
Yes.
Would you like to give it a go?
Oh no, only the doctor could administer the treatment.
I don't see why. It looks very simple. In this day and age, all one has to do is press a button or pull a switch. I'll hold it for you.
All right. Wait. Is that not your husband's carriage?
I can't hear a thing.
I hear a horse's hooves.
You're imagining things. He won't be home from the club until at least 7 o'clock.
Are you sure?
Oh yes, when he starts talking about electricity, he cannot stop.
Well then,
Are you ready?
I think so.
Here we go.
Mrs. Givings put the vibrator on Mrs. Doldry's private parts. They look heavenward. The steady hum of the vibrator, transcendent music. A curtain falls. Act 2 begins. The first scene. 2 weeks or so later, Dr. Givings and Leo in the operating theater.
And then she left very abruptly for Italy.
I see.
It was a terrible shock. I had been studying in Florence for the year. They're exacting masters over there. The line must be just so, the proportion just so. There is no freedom. You sharpen your pencil with a knife, as Leonardo sharpened his pencil. It was heaven. Not to have freedom, no freedom in art, but in life, life. The peaches there tasted like peaches, the rain like rain. I met the woman in question in Florence, a very beautiful woman. I know, no one ever said I fell in love with a woman in Italy, a very ugly woman, but she was beautiful. Perhaps not classically, but never mind. We met in the Uffizi. She was looking at the sculptures with no embarrassment at all. I painted her face all summer. When she kissed with her whole body, not like American women who kiss only with their lips. You are perhaps shocked, Doctor, that I kissed her before marriage. I am a devotee of nature, and I wish to avoid the fate of my boyhood friend. On his wedding night, he was repulsed by his wife's body. He said when she disrobed for the first time, he saw something monstrous. What? What? I asked. She had body hair, he said, down there, like a beast. You see, he had seen the female form only in marble statues. No body hair. You are a scientist. That must amuse you.
What men do not observe because their intellect prevents them from seeing would fill many books.
Indeed.
Well, what happened to your friend?
He is now a very famous art critic. His marriage went unconsummated for 3 years and was then annulled. I did not wish such a fate for myself, and so, while lips were willing and free and soft, I kissed them. Oh yes, I kissed them. She did not come from a good family, and her English was not very good, but I did not care. Her soul leapt out of her eyes. When I painted her, I felt I could paint souls. Her soul hovered just here, and I could see it. So, when I painted 2 inches away from the eyes, not the eyes themselves. It was a revelation. I digress.
Mrs. Givings enters the other room and arranges tea things.
She journeyed with me to England to meet my parents, to announce the engagement. And then the following morning, she fled back to Italy. No word, no letter, no answer to my inquiries, nothing. And my whole body revolted against me. Headache, eyesight, weakness, nausea.
And this weakness has persisted for what?
9 months.
In your extremities?
Yes, but the weakness in my eyes is perhaps the worst because of my inability to paint.
So you haven't painted in 9 months?
You can't paint in the dark.
It is very rare, a case of hysteria in a man, but of course, we do see it.
Is it treatable?
I believe it is. I'd like you to undress to your underthings and lie down on the table. Annie, my assistant, will be in shortly.
Elizabeth enters the living room with the baby.
I did not know there would be a lady in attendance.
She is the soul of tact and reserve.
Leo undresses. Meanwhile, in the living room,
Was she a good eater?
An angel.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I think babies are angels when they drink only milk for that first year, you know, and they could fly right back to where they came from, to the milk in the clouds. And when they get teeth, it is the beginning of the end. They become animals, and there's no going back.
Yes.
But this one, still no teeth and still an angel.
Elizabeth touches the baby's cheek. The baby smiles. Mrs. Givings is jealous.
Well, that will be all now, Elizabeth.
I'll just get my things.
Elizabeth exits to the nursery. Leo is now undressed, and Dr. Givings enters the operating theater. Annie drapes a sheet over Leo. Mrs. Givings alone with the baby in the living room.
No smile? You were smiling for Elizabeth.
Singing quietly to the baby.
You raise the blinds in the morning, and I like to close them at night. Together we sleep near the birdhouse and forget the electric light.
In the operating theater,
This, Leo, is what I call the Chattanooga vibrator, my own invention. It slips into the anal cavity.
Indeed.
Just face that direction and curl up a bit, hugging your knees into your chest. Annie will just operate the foot pedal, which controls the speed. It functions much like a sewing machine.
Ah,
Dr. Givings plugs the vibrator in.
We are going to stimulate the prostate gland. Are you ready?
I think so.
Puts the vibrator down Leo's underthings. Annie assists. Leo looks troubled. Leo looks shocked. Leo has an anal paroxysm.
Oh, oh, oh!
Mrs. Givings goes to the door. A man's voice.
Excellent. I think we can stop now for the day. How are you feeling? Would you like a cup of tea?
I would love a cup of tea.
Dr. Givings enters the living room.
Hello, darling. How is work?
A new patient, an interesting case, very rare.
A man?
How did you know?
I heard a man's voice.
I did not know the door was quite so porous.
But why would a man come to see you?
Hysteria is very rare in a man, but then again, he is an artist. Perhaps you should take the baby for a walk so that you don't chance running into him.
I believe the baby is still hungry. I'll just go and find Elizabeth.
Yes.
She exits with the baby. Dr. Givings pours tea. Meanwhile, Leo has gotten dressed with Annie's assistance.
Thank you. How odd.
Dr. Givings enters and hands Leo tea.
Lovely.
I'll see you tomorrow. I believe daily sessions will be the best at this early stage. Feel free to use the grounds.
Excellent. Thank you, Doctor.
Leo hesitates, befuddled.
Of course. See you tomorrow, then.
Yes, yes, of course.
Leo enters the living room at the exact moment that Mrs. Givings enters without the baby.
Hello,
Hello.
Mrs. Givings.
Oh, you are the doctor's wife.
I am. He seldom has men here. What a rare treat to make your acquaintance.
She looks at him puzzled, remembering her own experience with the vibrator and wondering how on earth it is used on men.
Leonard Irving.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Irving.
And you.
He kisses her hand.
So old-fashioned.
I'm afraid everyone goes around these days saying, I am a modern man. I am a modern woman. It's the modern age, after all. But I detest modernity.
Do you? How contrary. Are you a very contrary person?
Some might say so.
The cut of your coat is very old-fashioned.
It is my father's old coat. I can't be bothered with the cut of a coat. I throw on whatever my father leaves for rags.
Leo looks at the lamp and squints.
Is the lamp too much for your eyes?
The light has troubled me greatly for the past 9 months, but I feel better presently.
She shuts the lamp off.
Just in case.
When Edison's light came out, they were all saying, my God, light like the sunset of an Italian autumn. No smoke, no odor, a light without flame, without danger. But to me, Mrs. Givings, a light without flame isn't divine. A light without flame is like...
What?
I cannot say.
Why not?
I hardly know you. I would offend your feminine sensibilities.
Oh, no need to be shy around me. I just blurt anything out.
Well, the light without flame is like having relations with a prostitute. No flame of love or desire, only the outer trappings of the act. And without love, without the mental quickening, the eyes, the blood, without the heart or intellect, bodies are meat and bone and levers and technicalities.
Well, perhaps you were right. Perhaps you oughtn't have said.
Not that I've ever known any prostitutes intimately.
Oh, I wasn't implying.
It's only a metaphor.
Of course.
It is awkward. They sit there in the gathering darkness.
I love this time of afternoon when the world is becoming dark and you can see outside your window lights in the neighboring windows coming on, one yellow, one almost white, little squares of light, other people's lives, sheltered against the night, so hopeful. Ridiculous, isn't it? To have so much hope, to think a little square of light could blot out the darkness, and yet another comes on and see.
He brings her to the window and shows her.
Yes. One. And then two.
Look, there, another window. Lit. Golden. The rest of the house dark. An incomplete painting. I love incomplete paintings. Why do painters always insist upon finishing paintings? It's unaccountable. Life is not like that.
Oh.
And the ones Michelangelo never finished. Do you know them? Ghosts of lines hovering in the background. Have you ever seen Virgin and Child and the Angels?
I have never been to Italy.
Oh, you must go, and upon arrival, you must go directly to see that painting. The incomplete lines of God. They cannot be filled in because they would be too beautiful. They would shock the senses, and so they are almost there. Women or angels exchanging confidences, coming into being. A woman who is 2/3 done is nearer to God. A young woman on the verge of knowing herself is the most attractive thing on this earth to a man for this very reason.
Do you think so?
Oh, yes.
They sit for a moment in the dark. The doorbell rings.
Excuse me.
Mrs. Givings jumps and answers the door. It is Mrs. Daldry.
Mrs. Daldry.
Hello. Am I early? I think that I'm early.
I have just made the acquaintance of Mr. Irving.
Nice to meet you. You were in the dark.
Mrs. Givings switches on the lamp. Leo is riveted by Mrs. Daldry's fragile beauty in the light.
I must go. 1,000 paintings. That is to say, 1,000 apologies, as it were, for my rudeness at leaving so suddenly. I now have 1,000 paintings to make. A bolt from the blue. I must order a new canvas. Several. Immediately. Goodbye.
He runs out the door.
What an interesting young man.
Yes.
A painter.
Gee.
Mrs. Givings makes sure that they are alone.
Mrs. Daldry, I have been wanting to speak to you ever since our adventure with the hat pin. You told me that you saw light when my husband treats you. Then you got drowsy and wanted to sleep. Well, I had such different sensations. I wonder if they can be the same instrument at all. I was not the least bit drowsy afterwards. In fact, I was overcome by the desire to walk or run or climb a tree. How could one device cause such opposite reactions? Perhaps it is because I am well and you are ill.
I don't know. I've been so worried that your husband might find out and get upset with us and suspend the treatment.
I do not care. I am determined to use the device again and unlock the mystery as to why it makes you drowsy and me very excitable. Why? I feel like a scientist.
Dr. Givings enters.
Ah, Mrs. Daldry, Mrs. Giddings. We are ready for you in the next room.
Yes.
Dr. Givings shoots a look at Mrs. Givings for speaking with his patient. He guides Mrs. Daldry into the operating theater.
Right this way. Looking well, looking well. Your appetite has improved, no?
I dare say it has.
Wonderful.
They go into the operating theater. Mrs. Givings watches them go. The doorbell rings. Mrs. Givings answers it.
I'm sorry, I forgot my scarf. I left in such a state.
I'm glad you've returned, Mr. Irving. I am all by myself as Mrs. Daldry has gone in to get electrical therapy, and I, the wife, am left to my own devices, as it were.
I'm not sure what you mean, Mrs. Giddings.
Have some more tea.
She pours.
I don't want to impose.
You'll have to wait for them to finish before you can retrieve your scarf. Sit. Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is for women and small fat boys. Lovely.
In the operating theater, Dr. Givings plugs the vibrator in while Mrs. Daldry gets undressed. The sound of the vibrator, Leo and Mrs. Givings talk over it.
It's fine weather we're having for November.
Yes, though dark.
Yes, it is dark.
Mrs. Daldry moans from the other room. Leo speaks more loudly.
Dark so early. Dark, and the trees so tall and naked. I think November is the tallest month because when the trees have lost their leaves, they look so much taller. Tall in a lonely way.
Mrs. Daldry moans.
Yes, November is a tall month. October is a round month. April is a skinny month.
No, do stop talking of the seasons.
Excuse me?
We talk, we surround ourselves with plants, with teapots, with little statuettes to give ourselves a feeling of home, of permanency, as if with enough heavy objects, perhaps the world won't shatter into a million pieces. Perhaps the house will not fly away, but I experienced something the other day, Mr. Irving, something to shatter a statuette, to shatter an elephant. Here is my riddle. What is a thing that can put a man to death and also bring him back to life again? Will you answer?
That is easy.
Is it?
Love.
No! Electricity!
Meanwhile, Mrs. Daldry has a loud paroxysm in the next room.
Very good, Mrs. Daldry.
Leo and Mrs. Givings look at each other. Elizabeth enters with her coat.
She ate again, and now she's sleeping. I never had a girl. When she eats so quietly, so politely. Not like my boys, who were ravenous.
Why, thank you, Elizabeth.
You are the baby's nurse?
Oh, excuse me. I did not see you. I would not have spoken of... Yes, I'm the baby's nurse.
I should like to paint you nursing the baby.
That would not be...
A Madonna for our times. A Madonna after the Civil War.
Elizabeth.
Oh, sir. Oh, dear, have I displeased you?
You'll have to excuse us. Elizabeth, the men in my household are very unorthodox, artists and scientists. Don't care at all about convention, do they?
Since your husband has been treating me, I feel full of the most wild creative energies. I could paint all night, and everyone seems full of beauty. You, Elizabeth, are beautiful, and you ought to be in a painting.
I've never had a man in the room when I nursed a baby. My husband, of course, has seen me nurse my own, but that is different.
I would pay you handsomely, and during your regular work hours, you'll just triple the salary and pretend I am not there while you work.
Triple the salary?
Yes, I cannot imagine she pays you very much for your services.
Mr. Irving, really, this...
I will pay you $10 an hour for your services.
Elizabeth and Mrs. Givings look at each other shocked. $10 was the equivalent of $175 or so.
I will sit for you, but do not tell my husband, and please disguise my features. And so that nothing will seem improper, I would like Mrs. Givings to sit in the room with us.
You must have a beautiful dress to wear, or a robe. Have you a dressing gown we can borrow? It must be something that will allow the breast out, so that she may give suck.
Mrs. Givings is shocked. Mrs. Daldry and Dr. Givings enter.
Oh, hello, Leo. I do not like that my patients should be scheduled so that they meet up. I'm so sorry.
I left my scarf.
Oh, Yeah, go right ahead and get it. We are finished.
Hello.
Hello.
The doorbell
Hello,
rings.
Mr. Daldry. Hello, Mr. Daldry.
Doctor,
I will just fetch my scarf.
In the other room, Leo looks at the vibrating machine. He wonders how it might be used on a woman.
you are looking quite well, Mrs. Daldry. You looked well this morning, but now you have even more color in your cheeks.
Isn't the improvement amazing?
Indeed. I think she might be ready to stop treatments.
I think that would be premature. I'm not cured yet.
Much improved.
Much improved. But much improved, yes. You are a magician, Doctor.
Leo enters the living room.
I'd forgotten my scarf.
Leo Irving.
Dick Daldry.
Pleased to meet you.
I'm glad you found your scarf. It's snowing.
Oh, is it?
November?
Indeed. I brought you your Macintosh, my dear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Not at all.
I will follow you out so we can all walk together.
Mr. Daldry, Mrs. Daldry, Elizabeth, and Leo leave.
Goodbye.
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 Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Dr. Givings shuts the door. Mrs. Givings looks disquieted.
What is it?
I think we should let Elizabeth go.
Whatever for? Letitia's blooming and rosy and positively fat.
I think Elizabeth is becoming attached to the baby.
You want her to give love to the baby, and not too much.
Precisely.
I shall never understand women.
I am still leaking bits of gray milk. It's as though my body is crying.
Oh, darling, don't be back to normal. You'll be back to normal in no time. And it's good for you to give up nursing. We can have another child more quickly.
Another child? She won't even look at me.
Who?
The baby. She won't smile at me. I'm not a good mother. I do nothing. I pour the tea. I wish you'd use your machine on me.
Darling, it's for women who are ill. It would probably have no effect on you at all, as you are perfectly healthy.
I'm not healthy. I feel restless and excitable, and I cry at the smallest thing. You help countless other women, but me, your wife, you pat on the head.
What is the matter?
She knows where to get comfort and love, and it is not from me.
You are her mother.
In name only. Milk is comfort. Milk is love. How will she learn to love me?
You do seem to be suffering, perhaps from the excess fluid of milk. I can perhaps try the treatment on you, although it makes me nervous. You don't go around telling your friends. It must not get out in the scientific community that I am treating my own wife.
Now?
I haven't any other patients for an hour.
Now that you've given way, I feel quite frightened.
There's nothing to be frightened of, darling. Come along. I'll show you.
He leads her to the operating theater.
First, you undress to your underthings. I shall turn around.
Do all the women undress to their underthings?
It's medicine, my love.
She starts to undress and realizes there are too many buttons in the back.
I can't do this bit without your help.
Oh, sorry.
He helps her with the buttons and then turns around again. A gentleman.
Is that all right?
Yes.
She finishes undressing herself. He plugs in the vibrator.
Don't be alarmed. Just lie down and relax.
She does.
Are you quite comfortable?
Yes.
He holds the vibrator to her private parts, his face impassive.
Electricity is not to be feared. It is harnessed from nature. I remember when I was a child, I was stroking the cat's back one day and was startled to see sparks rising out of her fur. My father said, This is nothing but electricity, the same thing you see on the trees in a storm. My mother seemed alarmed. Stop stroking the cat. You might start a fire. I kept on stroking the cat. I thought, is nature a cat? If so, who strokes its back? God.
And what did you determine?
Natural law. Oh, is that too much pressure?
No. Oh. 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 Kiss me, darling. Kiss me.
Afterwards.
No. Kiss me now. Kiss me and hold the instrument there. Just there. At the same time.
Darling, no, that would be...
I don't care. Do it. Do it. I have been longing to kiss someone. Like this.
Kisses him passionately and puts the vibrator back on her private parts.
This is what I feared. In a sick woman, the device restores balance, but in a healthy woman, it makes you excitable and perhaps even causes some perverse kind of onanism.
What is onanism?
I am relieved that you do not know. I'm afraid the experiment was not a success, dear.
And I say it was a success. Kiss me. Kiss me now.
He kisses her politely.
This is inadequate. You are inadequate. Oh, God.
She has not yet a paroxysm. He takes the vibrator away from her.
I made a terrible mistake bringing you into the operating theater. Men of science should never mix their family lives and their medical lives. It was my mistake, my darling, and we will both forget about it.
He unplugs the vibrator.
Now, I want you to go upstairs and take a nap.
No.
Catherine?
She dresses, and Dr. Givings helps her with the innumerable buttons.
I shall take a walk. Will you help me? Oh, for God's sake, why does it have so many buttons?
There are quite a lot of buttons.
I could walk all night in the snow.
Is it snowing out?
You didn't notice the first snow? My God. When I first met you and was nothing more than a girl, I wrote my name in the snow outside your window. I would have done anything for you to notice me. You were older and seemed so wise, so calm, so marvelously indifferent to me. I don't know if you ever saw. It melted. No matter. If you saw my name in the snow, all you'd see is a natural substance.
Catherine?
I'm afraid you've done up the buttons wrong.
Oh, sorry.
He starts doing the buttons over again.
It was an unnecessary gesture, childish. A name in the snow, but a gift must be unnecessary for it to be good. But you want it to be useful. You wouldn't say, well, it's useless, but you made it for me alone. And so it will never melt. It will exist all the time. Ugh. How ridiculous I sound. My hat, please.
She is dressed.
I made a very bad mistake today, and I am sorry.
Goodbye.
She leaves the operating theater. She leaves the house without her coat, hat, or mittens.
Take your wrap. It's cold. Did you really write your name in the snow?
Dr. Givings is alone. He washes up, resigned. He splashes his face with water. He looks at the water and becomes entranced, fascinating, inspired.
Annie!
Annie appears.
Can you take this down? I have suddenly thought up a new invention.
She takes notes.
A vibrator made of water. The healing power of water, married to a great electrical force, could be, my goodness, revolutionary. The patient would experience a calming effect from the water, even as she has a release from the pressure, revitalizing the circulation. It could be used on patients who are prone to excitability, like my wife. That is to say, we will need 20 feet of copper piping right away. Can you order it from the hardware store as soon as possible?
Yes, sir.
Annie exits. Dr. Givings tries to work out with his hands in the air how his invention would work. Mrs. Givings re-enters the living room with Leo. They are laughing and their faces are flushed.
Oh, how glad I am that I found you.
And I you. You might have caught a terrible fever making snow angels without your coat. You look like a fallen angel.
Did I? Oh, I am cold, but the cold feels marvelous. I feel awake. My skin is tingling.
I must paint you like this.
Leo, Mr. Irving, I must ask you. I know it is not proper, but I do not care today. I do not care at all. When you receive the treatment from my husband, where does he put it? The instrument?
I do not think your husband would like me to say. He would only speak of it in Latin or in Greek.
Well, I only know English. Can you show me on my person?
No. I may be an artist, but I am also a gentleman.
There is no such thing. Which is it, Mr. Irving? Do you dare to be an artist or a gentleman?
She moves toward him, but he moves away.
Look at the snow out the window. Do you not think, Mrs. Givings, that snow is always kind? Because it has to fall slowly, to meet the ground slowly, or the eyelash slowly. And things that meet each other slowly are kind.
You are changing the subject.
Indeed I am.
Meet me slowly, like snow.
She puts her hand on his cheek, slowly.
I cannot bear it.
Dr. Givings enters the living room, yelling for Annie.
Wait, Annie! We'll also need 10 copper valves.
He sees his wife's hand on Leo's cheek.
Had a good walk, I trust.
Mrs. Givings takes her hand from Leo's cheek.
I discovered your wife in the snow with no coat, and I insisted upon walking her home to warm her up before she caught a fever.
And you did me a very great service, Mr. Irving.
Goodbye, Dr. Givings, Mrs. Givings.
Goodbye.
Dr. Givings turns to his wife.
Was your hand on his cheek?
It was.
I see.
And do you mind very much?
A pause, he considers.
It is odd. For some husbands, such things end in a screaming match or even in death, one hand on a cheek. It has come to mean an absolute thing, the end of a book. Those dreadful Mrs. Bovary books. But how can it be absolute when there are so many shades and degrees of love? Lady novelists like it for it to be a tragedy, because it means that the affair mattered terribly. But it doesn't, it needn't.
The writer of Madame Bovary was not a woman.
It was French, which is much the same thing.
You dare to make a joke about the French. At this moment, most men would be pale with rage.
Pale with rage, exactly, in a sentimental novel. My point is, this is not the end of the book. You made a mistake, that is all. The treatment I gave you made you excitable. It is my fault. A hand on the cheek. These are muscles, skin, fats. You needn't mean that one is preferred absolutely or that one isn't loved. So why then jealousy? My darling, I don't mind.
Oh. I had hoped that you would mind.
She storms out of the room. Dr. Givings is left alone.
Catherine?
He follows after her.
Don't talk to me tonight. Don't talk to me tomorrow. I will take breakfast in my own room.
A door slamming, a song on the piano. Second scene, a few days later. Leo is painting Elizabeth, who is nursing Letitia. She is dressed vaguely as the Virgin Mary in one of Mrs. Givings' gowns. Mrs. Givings watches Leo paint. The painting does not face us. We do not see it.
How can there be so few Madonnas in which the baby Jesus actually gives suck?
We are to think of him feeding us, I suppose, not the other way around.
Mrs. Givings gets up and paces. She is jealous of nursing and of being painted. Leo goes to Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, could you just...
He arranges the fabric on her so her breast is more exposed. Mrs. Givings examines the painting.
Don't look at it. It's not done yet.
Sorry.
Elizabeth, could you just...
He angles her head toward the baby.
There, beautiful. There is nothing so peaceful as nursing a baby. The baby and the mother become one being, do they not?
Mrs. Givings taps her foot.
You seem nervous, Mrs. Givings.
We should stop. My husband will be home from the club shortly, and he wouldn't approve of this, not at all.
I don't see why. Your husband is a man who understands science. Why, then, he must understand nature.
Leo resumes painting.
I am not supposed to talk to his patients, much less arrange for them to see the bare breasts of the help in my living room.
Leave behind the strange hold of convention and loosen your corset, Mrs. Giddings. You will breathe much better.
She's done eating. She's fallen asleep.
He paints. Mrs. Giddings paces.
I can hold the baby.
I need her there for the angle of Elizabeth's hands.
Oh. What day of the week is it, anyway?
Wednesday.
That's right. Wednesday. It's always Wednesday, isn't it? Or it was Wednesday only yesterday. It's almost never Friday. It is never, ever Tuesday, but always Wednesday, I find. Smack in the middle of the week, with nothing to look forward to but the charwoman coming and cleaning out the ashes. Are you almost done with her hands?
Hands are difficult. You would think they would be just 5 quick lines, but no, they have personalities as intimate as faces. Elizabeth's hands, for instance, they are fine hands, with long fingers that remind me of tapered candles. A person one has loved, the memory of their hands. Did they flutter or sit still? Dry, moist, cool on a hot forehead? What? That is what I wish to express in my paintings, the memory of the movement of very particular hands, even though they appear to be unmoving on canvas.
Have you loved many women, Mr. Irving? Do you remember many hands?
I have loved enough women to know how to paint. If I had loved fewer, I would be an illustrator. If I had loved more, I would be a poet.
Are poets required to love many women?
Oh, yes. Love animates every line.
But what of the rest of us mere mortals? How many times must we fall in love in order to live through the week?
There is also the love of God, love of memory, love of children.
Indeed.
I must look at her
This
hand.
is a reminder.
The front door
Press the
opens.
front line.
Leo stops painting. Dr. Giddings enters. They startle. Elizabeth covers her breast. Dr. Giddings is shocked at the scene in the living room. Then he pretends he hasn't seen anything.
You are early for your appointment, Mr. Irving.
Yes.
I will wash up and see you in the operating theater. Good afternoon, Elizabeth.
Oh, God.
He exits to the operating theater.
It's all right. As you see, he is a man of science. Nothing upsets or shocks him.
You talk as if that's a crime. What a capital husband you have, completely beyond the dictates of modern society. I love your husband.
Shall I take the baby into the nursery?
Yes, that will be all, Elizabeth. I will put the paint things away. Go to your appointment, Mr. Irving.
Thank you, Elizabeth. You are nothing short of divine. Do you mind terribly being looked at? Being seen?
Who minds being seen?
Who?
Only criminals, I suppose.
Indeed.
Good day, Mr. Irving.
Mrs. Giddings.
Leo enters the operating theater.
No need to undress all the way. We can be quick about it. Just lower your trousers.
Meanwhile, Mr. Giddings tries to hide the painting in the living room.
It seems that you and my wife are becoming acquainted.
A bit.
I see. She's a wonderful woman, is she not?
Yes.
I'm a lucky man.
Dr. Giddings inserts the Chattanooga vibrator a little more firmly than usual.
And your health, it seems to be much improved.
Yes, I am painting again. In fact, I cannot stop painting.
How wonderful. I am so glad for you.
Leo has an anal paroxysm.
Woo!
I do think you're cured now. We can stop the treatments.
Thank you, doctor. I believe you've saved my life.
Dr. Giddings puts away the vibrator.
I am suddenly drowsy.
Take a nap. Good day.
Dr. Giddings exits his private study. Leo drowses. In the living room, the doorbell rings. Mrs. Giddings answers the door. Mr. and Mrs. Daldry enter.
Ah, Mr. and Mrs. Daldry.
Hello.
I have not visited with you since it was raining. Mr. Daldry.
And I have not seen you since you were wet. Have you been well? You look well, very well.
Thank you.
It's good you're done with that odious nursing business. A woman like you should be enjoying herself, not shut up in a nursery all day.
Will you do me a favor, dear, and take a walk around the grounds before my appointment? I wish to speak to Mrs. Gibbons about my needlework before Dr. Gibbons arrives, and I fear will bore you.
Well, I don't have much to say on the subject of needlepoint. I'll see you shortly, darling, Mrs. Gibbings.
Oh,
Mrs. Gibbings.
Oh,
Is that me?
as he moves to the door.
Take a left turn by the fountain. There is a winter garden. I planted it myself. It's funny, I don't have that. Oh, I see it. There it is. My script got funnily done on the page. Anyway.
I didn't know anything grew in the winter.
Oh, yes. Juniper and periwinkle and...
It's all the same to me, but if you planted it, Mrs. Gibbings, I'm sure it's lovely.
He exits.
I wanted to speak to you.
Come and sit. You've taken up needlework?
No, I hate needlework. I've been thinking about what you said, about having two experiences of the same event. I want very much to, I don't know how to, but I was thinking if we go into the operating theater again and we place the instrument just so, well, if you held it and then I held it, but we did kind of a...
Mrs. Daldry gestures oddly. Elizabeth enters.
I laid her down to sleep in the pram. I'm sorry about the,
Never mind, Elizabeth. You may go now. Wait, Elizabeth. Before you leave, perhaps you can settle a question. Mrs. Daldry and I have had two experiences of the very same event. Have you ever had this sensation? Either you have shivers all over your body and you feel like running and your feet get very hot, as though you are dancing on the devil's coals.
Or you see unaccountable patterns of light, of electricity under your eyelid, your heart races, and your legs feel very weak as though you cannot walk.
Or your face gets suddenly hot like a strange sudden sunburn.
Or there are red splotches up on the side of your entire body, or a strange rash.
And the feeling of burning as though you'll get no relief, and your mouth is dry, and you have to lick your lips, and you find your face making an ugly expression, so you cover your face with your hands.
And sometimes a great outpouring of liquid, and the sheets are wet. But it's not an unpleasant sensation, only a little frightening.
is this a riddle?
Has this ever happened to you?
I do not know. The sensations are so contradictory. Does anything unite them?
Many of them are down below.
Oh, I see. Well, the things you describe, some of them seem to be sensations that an invalid would have, or someone with a horrible fever. But others sound like sensations that women might have when they are having relations with their husbands. I'm sorry, perhaps you were joking. Perhaps I shouldn't have said.
With their husbands?
How interesting.
Those sensations you're describing, are they not from having relations with your husbands?
God heavens, no.
No. Good God.
I don't know what I should do if I felt those things in the presence of my husband. I'd be so embarrassed. I would leave the room immediately. As it is, my husband, he's very considerate. When he comes to my room at night, I'm asleep. He tells me to keep my eyes shut. So I do, and so I only feel darkness and then the pain. I lie very still I do not see his face. My husband has always been very considerate.
Of course.
But the instrument produces a very different kind of pain, does it not? A very different from the other kind of pain. With my husband,
Leo enters the room a bit dazed.
Leo,
Leo.
No, someone else says something.
No, the bottom of 116.
Ladies. I said ladies.
Oh,
They nod to him.
Goodbye.
Elizabeth is embarrassed to see him.
Goodbye then.
I will see you home. I have a good enough likeness. I can finish the painting at my studio.
I can walk myself home.
No, I wouldn't hear of it. I will walk you home.
No, thank you, Mr. Irving.
Please, you did me a great service today. I can at least see that you get home.
Oh,
Oh, don't go just yet.
I'll just see Elizabeth home. Oh, the painting.
I'll get it.
She hands him the painting. Elizabeth exits.
Will I see you soon?
I'm afraid my treatments are at an end. I'm cured.
But that's impossible.
Dr. Gibbings enters from the operating theater and sees the goodbyes between Leo and Catherine.
I will see you again. Never fear. Goodbye, Catherine. Dr. Gibbings, farewell.
Leo runs out the door.
Mrs. Daldry, I did not hear you arrive. I'll just let you get ready.
Mrs. Daldry moves to the operating theater and undresses with the help of Annie. In the living room,
What can you be thinking of? You need to embarrass me.
I thought it was only a scene in a book to you. Or a fact.
Do you think it's escaped my notice that you haven't breakfasted with me the 5 days running?
Breakfast is not a very romantic meal. I decided to skip it.
Is every meal supposed to be romantic?
I do not enjoy you silently reading your scientific journals while I eat my toast.
You prefer grand passions over toasts? My God, woman, we are married. A man needs to be quiet at least once a day.
So I'll be quiet then. Here I am. Quiet. Quiet as a mouse.
Mr. Daldry enters the living room.
what a beautiful winter garden. Oh, sorry, am I interrupting?
No, we were just discussing breakfast. You know, in Italy, they hardly eat breakfast. Just a little bit of sweet cracker to dip in a very strong coffee. They eat something light to recover from the grand passions they spent during the night. Better to skip breakfast and to move on to lunch, a great big lunch, when the silence isn't quite so loud. No, the silence is not quite so deafening at lunch.
How do you know about this coffee?
Mr. Irving told me.
I see.
Huh, I know nothing about biscotti. I like ham and eggs for breakfast. Sausage, too. A big breakfast is important for one's energy, Mrs. Gibbings. I have once heard that small women should eat large animals. You ought to eat a bit of meat for breakfast, some bacon or some sausage.
Oh, I have plenty of energy, Mr. Daldry. I don't need to borrow energy from a cow. I have so much energy I do not know what to do with it, you see.
Annie sticks her head in the living room.
We're ready for you, Doctor.
Will you excuse me?
Yes, of course.
Dr. Gibbings enters the operating theater. He is distracted. He puts the vibrator on Mrs. Daldry's torso.
Dr. Gibbings?
Yes?
Something wrong?
Oh, terribly sorry. I'm distracted.
He moves the vibrator. In the living room, Mr. Daldry and Mrs. Gibbings sit on the couch. He moves towards her.
Mrs. Gibbings, I don't always know how to converse in a drawing room.
He tries to kiss her. She slaps him.
Mr. Daldry, what can you be thinking of?
You said about your energies. I thought
You insult me.
you have no idea how I long for a woman of energy. My wife is so tired. She is so tired. all the time.
How dare you speak ill of your wife in my presence? Go, please.
Will you have the goodness of telling Mrs. Doldry to meet me at home? I will send a carriage for her.
Mrs. Givings nods. Mr. Doldry leaves. She goes to the door of the operating theater and hesitates there, sinking down, upset.
It has been taking longer with you of late. Perhaps I need to build a new instrument with a few more beats per minute. Perhaps the body gets accustomed to so many beats per minute and then requires more.
He adjusts the vibrator.
Nothing. Is it past 3 minutes?
He looks at his pocket watch.
Perhaps if Annie tries.
Yes, of course. Annie, why don't you have a go? I will attend to some business.
Annie takes the vibrator and tries. Dr. Givings leaves the room. He almost trips on his wife at the door.
My God, you are acting the part of a madwoman in a play. Listening at doors.
You will offer to her what you deny to me.
It is medicine, my love.
And I say it isn't.
I thought I heard a slap.
It was nothing at all.
Mrs. Doldry has a louder than usual paroxysm. They both hear it.
Well, your work is done now. You can go to the club and argue about the benefits of the alternating current over and above the direct current.
And you? Do you favor the alternating or direct?
Direct. From here to here.
Interesting. I would have guessed alternating. More complicated, changing direction dozens of times per second. Faces slapped by nobody. Italian breakfast, etc. I'll be at the club.
He exits. Mrs. Givings moves toward the operating theater. Annie and Mrs. Doldry are sitting in a weirdly compromised post-coital state of reflection.
Annie, have you ever used the instrument upon yourself?
Oh, no, for I've never been ill. I've scarcely had a day's illness in my life. Maybe a bit of a stomach bug, but nothing mental. I'm sound as a horse. I was raised on a farm.
I could hold the instrument on you, if you would like. It is not unpleasant, and perhaps it would be interesting for you to experience it.
I don't think the doctor would like it.
Mrs. Givings enters the operating theater.
My husband has gone to the club, and Mr. Doldry has also left. He sent a carriage for you. They both said their farewells.
Thank you, Mrs. Givings.
Shall I leave you? I could...
A suspended moment in which we are not sure if we might witness three women playing with the vibrator together. All of them think about it. They all look at one another, and then at the instrument.
I must get dressed.
Of course. Annie, do you need any assistance cleaning up?
No, thank you, Mrs. Givings. It's very easy to clean up.
All right, then. I will leave you.
Mrs. Givings exits. Annie helps Mrs. Doldry get dressed.
Well,
then.
I suppose we could continue with my Greek lesson.
Oh, yes. I believe we left off with the early Greek philosophers. Thales thought the earth was suspended on water, floated there, and he thought all magnets had souls because they moved towards one another.
I can well believe that magnets have souls. When I look into dark eyes like magnets, I am moved unaccountably. You have very dark eyes, like magnets. Has any man ever told you that?
No man has told me much aside from pass the clamp.
Well, they should, Annie. They really should. Whatever happened to Tails?
He never married. His mother told him he should marry, and he said, it's too early. And when she pressed him again 10 years later, he said, it's too late.
Then you? Why haven't you never married?
One day I woke up, and it was too late.
I see. Annie, I've been thinking. I wonder whether I could purchase one of those instruments for home use. The doctor's so busy, and I really feel I'm almost better. My color has returned, and I wake up in the morning and I feel hopeful. I could use it only as required. When, for example, I have trouble sleeping, or as often as I do, and I can't very well call on the doctor past midnight.
Well, it might be dangerous for home use because of the potential for electrocution. But I will ask the doctor. You know, he's very open to inventions.
I would be too embarrassed to ask.
I will ask for you.
Goodbye then, Annie.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Annie.
For what?
For the Greek lesson.
Mrs. Doldry exits. Annie washes her hands. She looks at the vibrator, thinks of using it on herself, thinks better of it, and puts it away. Meanwhile, Mrs. Givings is lying on the sofa in the living room.
Are you quite all right, Mrs. Givings? Your color looks off.
I am not myself.
Is there anything I can do?
No, thank you. Mrs. Daltrey, did you dream of love from a young age?
Yes.
What did you think it would be like?
I thought it would be never wanting for anything, being surrounded and lifted up, like resting on water for eternity.
And is that what you have found in marriage?
There have been moments of rest, but as it turns out, the earth rests on air, not on water, and the air can feel very insubstantial at times, even though it's holding you up invisibly.
Yes.
Do you mind if I play your piano?
Oh, please do.
Mrs. Doldry plays the piano, full of longing. From off stage, the baby cries.
Excuse me.
Mrs. Givings exits to attend to the baby. Annie enters and listens to Mrs. Doldry play. Annie goes to sit beside Mrs. Doldry on the piano bench. Mrs. Doldry finishes the song. Annie claps. They kiss.
What?
Oh.
How strange.
Oh, dear.
I had better not see you again.
I suppose not.
Goodbye, Annie.
Mrs.
Goodbye.
Doldry exits. Mrs. Givings enters.
Annie?
What a sad song she played. I believe it made me tear up a little. Goodbye, Mrs. Givings.
Oh, don't leave, Annie. Dr. Givings is at the club and I have very little company.
I'm afraid I must go.
What is the matter?
That song made me sad. Goodbye.
Mrs. Givings alone. The doorbell rings. Elizabeth enters, not entirely herself.
Elizabeth, I did not expect you. What is it?
Mrs. Givings, I came to tell you that today was my last day working for you. My husband doesn't like me gone so much, and he wants me home with my children.
You can't leave us, Elizabeth. What on earth will we do without you?
She is almost ready to have cow's milk or a little bit of rice porridge.
I suppose I was not thinking only of the food.
Elizabeth nods slowly.
But why today? I don't understand.
Mr. Irving insisted on walking me home. He was not inappropriate, but he kept hold of my arm. He paid a large sum of money for the sitting, and he walked me up to my front door.
Oh, dear.
And my husband was home. And my husband saw him and me and the painting.
Oh. Was your husband very angry about the painting?
The painting? No. He cried when he saw the painting. It's your hands, he said. Mr. Irvin must be a good painter. It's hard to paint hands. But he doesn't want me working here. Not anymore.
Of course. Yes. I understand.
No, you don't. I'll just say goodbye to Lottie, and I've grown really fond of her.
Yes. Well, she's in the nursery. She is fat and happy, all thanks to you. Elizabeth, how old was your Henry Douglas when he died?
12 weeks.
What did he die of?
Cholera.
I am sorry.
Thank you.
I think I should die of sorrow in your place.
But how do you go on after? Die of sorrow? A mother of two cannot die of sorrow.
But how do you go on after?
My mother told me to pray each day since I was a little girl, to pray that you borrow everything, everyone you love from God. And that way your heart doesn't break when you have to give your son or your mother or your husband back to God. I prayed, Jesus, let me be humble. I borrowed my child. I borrowed my husband. I borrowed my own life from you, God. But he felt like mine, not like God's. He felt like mine, more mine than anything. God must have had this huge, horrible cabinet, all the babies that get returned and all the babies inside, they're all crying, even God himself rocked them to sleep. Still, they want their mothers. So when I started to feel something for this baby, for your baby, I thought, no, take her back, God. Like, when I first met her, all I could think of was, she is alive and Henry is not. I had all this milk. I wished it would dry up. I just get through the year, I thought. Your milk will dry up and you will forget. The more healthy your baby got, the more dead my baby became. And I thought of her like a tick. I thought, fill her up and then pop. You will see the blood of my Henry underneath. But she seemed so grateful for the milk. Sometimes I hated her for it. But she would look at me and she would give me this look. I do not know what to call it, but it is not called love. I hope every day you keep her close to you, and you remember the blood that her milk was made from, the blood of my son, Henry. Goodbye, Mrs. Gibbons.
Goodbye, Elizabeth.
Mrs. Gibbons touches Elizabeth's elbow. Elizabeth nods. Elizabeth pulls away and exits to the nursery.
Thank you.
But Elizabeth is out the door. Mrs. Gibbons alone. She moves toward the operating theater. The doorbell rings. It is Leo.
You have made quite a mess of things for Elizabeth.
I know, I'm sorry. I have come to say goodbye. I'm moving to Paris.
When?
Tomorrow.
Take me with you.
Are you out of your mind?
You're surprised? It was you who seduced me.
What?
All that talk of women. 2/3 done? That was me. You were talking of me. Were you not?
I was talking of paintings.
No one has ever spoken to me of those things before. Of beauty, of prostitutes, of... My God, of Italy. How could I have misunderstood your intentions? I'm in love with you.
Oh, dear Catherine, I am afraid I cannot love you. If there is any type to whom I am attracted, it veers towards women with dark eyes. And your eyes are more thin. The light bounces off of them rather than into them. And I cannot see your soul hovering here, where I would like to. Your soul is locked somewhere inside your body, so I cannot see it. Another man could perhaps bring your soul outside your eyes, but it's not me, I'm afraid. I do care for you, though.
Try to bring my soul out. To hear. If you look into my eyes, see, I will try. Are you bringing another woman with you?
No, I am going alone. Don't you see? It's Elizabeth who I love.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Oh, I see nothing. I understand nothing. My God, Elizabeth.
Yes, and she doesn't care for me, not at all. I told her of my affections on our walk, and she slapped me. No, I will go to Paris alone. I am married to my solitude.
Oh, I can be your solitude. I will be as quiet as a mouse. I understand solitude. I'm very lonely.
I do not understand your loneliness, Mrs. Givings. You have a child, a husband, a home.
Yes. I'm very ungrateful. I'm sure that God will punish me.
She tries to embrace him.
No, you do not love me. You only think you do. You love your husband. He is a good man. Goodbye now.
He kisses her hands.
Elizabeth is in the nursery, if you wish to say goodbye to her.
I can't bear to see her. Just give her this, won't you?
Leo kisses Mrs. Givings on the cheek.
Come visit me in France. I promise you, you'll love the paintings.
He leaves. She goes into the operating theater. She plugs in the vibrator. She puts it to her private parts, but she is too sad for it to work. She cries as it hums along. Dr. Givings enters.
My dear, what on earth are you doing?
I'm alone.
We're not alone. I am here. Have you been using this instrument on yourself?
Dr. Givings shuts off the vibrator.
I am so lonely. Elizabeth is leaving us. Leo is leaving us. Everyone is leaving. You are gone. You're at the club or in the next room, always in the next room with the door locked. You see that women are capable of pressing a button themselves.
Darling.
When you touch them, the other women, and Leo with the machine, did you feel love for them? When you touched them there, was it like love?
No, I only wanted them to feel better.
And when you married me, did you want to love me, or did you want to make me feel better?
A doctor wants to make everyone feel better.
But did you want to love me?
Yes, and you, with your hands on another man's faces, do you love them? Do you love Mr. Irving?
A little.
I have a strange feeling in my stomach.
What is it?
My eyes feel funny, and my stomach feels jumpy. I believe I'm jealous.
Give up your operating theater, darling.
And do what instead?
Love me. Love me for your job.
All day long?
All day long. I have heard that some women do not need the vibrating instrument to give them paroxysms, that relations with their husbands have much the same effect. Love me for your job.
I would like to love you.
Would you?
Yes, I have not known how.
You said to me that when my hand was on another man's cheek, that there were all types and shades of love. But what is it then? This very particular way in which you love me. What color? What temperature? And please, do not say you are my wife, I am your husband.
I do not have words.
Please try.
That is why they have poets, to classify all the degrees of love. It is for scientists to classify the maladies arising from the want of it.
Try.
Do not make fun of me. You promise?
I promise.
Kissing tenderly each place as he names it, all on the face.
I bless the temporomandibular joint. I bless the buccal artery and nerve. I bless the depressor anguli oris. I bless the zygomatic arch. I bless the temporalis fascia. I bless the pathway.
Mrs. Givings cries. It is so intimate.
Open me.
Here?
Away from the machine. In the garden. Undress me there.
You wish to undress in the garden in December?
Yes. And please, do not call me impractical. Our whole future happiness depends upon it.
Dr. and Mrs. Givings kiss. Although the domestic space seems terribly permanent, a settee, a statuette. Suddenly it disappears, and we are in a sweet, small winter garden, snow-covered trees that are the spring flower with pink flowers.
Undress me. Do not close your eyes. Look at me.
He undresses her partially.
The street lamps are coming on. Someone will see us.
No one will see. They are not electric yet. Thank God something still flickers.
She undresses him.
Are you cold?
No. Are you cold?
No.
We don't need to see all of his body. It is dark out, but we do see the moon glowing off his skin, off his back and shoulders. He need not face us. She has never seen him naked before. She has only seen him under the covers.
How beautiful you are. Your body. You've never seen that little bit there under the covers, or that bit there, or this beautiful line here. I have felt this shadow there, but I have never seen it, how it curves.
Pointing to different lines in his body.
I am embarrassed.
Don't be. Lie down and make a snow angel.
He lies on his back and makes an angel in the snow. She lies on top of him. They make an angel. They make their wings go back and forth. It snows on them. Outside on the street corners, the gas lamps go on, one by one, flickering, insubstantial.
Catherine.
Oh, God. Oh. God. Oh, God.
And the lights go out. The end.
Yay!
Yay, end of play.
Great day.